Made it?
Hello, Gary. How are you?
Hey, Valerie. I'm good. I'm good. Another day.
Are you Canada, Gary? Is that where you are?
Huh?
Where are you located? Is it in Canada?
We're in Oregon at the moment.
Oregon. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. So,
Hello, Valerie.
hello. Hello, Samir. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Samir in Guildford.
Hello,
Samir and Gayatri.
Yes.
Hi, Samir.
hello,
So,
hello.
I hear you, Samir.
Okay.
You alright?
It went all quiet there in the first picture.
Nope, we're good. Um,
So you're good, Gary. Nice to hear.
yeah. I'm always good. Not always talking, but I'm always good.
Yes. Gayatri, how are you?
I'm good. One second, guys. I'm just fixing up my.
So I'm not sure who else. I'm not sure who else is going to be joining.
Hello, Gayatri. How are you? I'm Valerie.
Hi. I'm good. It's called Guy 3 actually.
Guys.
Me Gay 3.
Gayatri.
It's called Guy 3.
So, Valerie, welcome to the group. I'm glad you could join us.
Oh, thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
would you like to introduce yourself briefly and kind of narrate how you arrived at this particular moment in space and time?
Oh gosh. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Valerie. I'm from Ireland, but I'm also Australian citizen as well. Um, so I'm a teacher, primary teacher, and I've worked a lot overseas. So my last teaching stint was in Mexico City. So I'm back in Ireland, with my family. Um, I'm taking care of my parents at the moment, old, and I'm doing some writing as well. So I've got a few projects going on, and it's been a slow and steady progress to get to here. It hasn't been one thing. I think it's been a lot of different things, and yeah. So I'm very glad to be part of the group. We can all share ideas, and it's nice to touch base with other people because I don't have many people to talk to about things. It's probably a lot of people here don't. So
Right.
forums and talks and the show sort of great. So just to hear what other people are thinking about what's happening in the world. And yeah,
Well, you have arrived, and this is a place where the crazies can join and share ideas.
yes, thank you.
Mm.
I was actually listening to Sovereign Key a few moments ago.
Mhm.
I like listening to Lauda Leon, is that her name?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And, I really like listening to her shows. They're very interesting.
She's
And the
great.
more I re-listen, the more I get something out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Lauda. Um, I haven't really listened to a whole lot of her material, but I definitely am like on a very similar wavelength
Hmm.
internally. Um, hmm? Yeah. So how's everybody? Everyone looks tired and weary. Is
Hey
this
everybody.
is this correct?
Hello.
Hey. I'm gonna make coffee, I'll be back.
Yeah. Yes, it's been quite a stressful week actually. I really felt it. It's weird because what they call like morphic field. The idea of, obviously of our consciousness being non-localized, and the more in touch you are with yourself, and your own inner pain that reconnects you to everybody else's pain and the pain on the planet. And I've been feeling very, very intense over the last, literally like the energy inside me was just, wanted to explode. Oh, hey!
What's going on, guys? Hey.
Hey, we made it.
Hey, guys.
I'll be right back.
Dan, is that you? Are you alive still?
I'm barely alive.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell is going on. I've never had this happen before.
Trying to have what happened?
It's like a full-blown panic attack.
Oh yeah. It might be
Out of
part of the.
control.
It might have been part of. I've been having that. The last week has been very, very tough. But it could also be if you joined the fun program they put me into. It could be part of what they call the spiritual hazing. It's targeting with electromagnetic devices.
Right.
I wouldn't give him those thought seeds at the moment, Samir. I think he's probably. I have a feeling that.
No, he's
'Cause-
going to be okay.
I know, but he's gonna be okay regardless. But I think to not give the Dan imagination too much fodder right now, I think it's better to
All right.
just let him.
No problem.
Yeah.
No, Dan, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. It's, I know, it's just
Hey,
very,
Samir,
very...
he's already okay. He just had a really good meal and he's starting to feel better.
Yeah.
Chill out.
Yeah, okay, cool. And has Dr. Beans been giving you some of his favorite coffee?
Yeah, it's some of the best coffee I ever had.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah. It
Good
is. It's
stuff.
really- yeah. And he just cooked an awesome meal, too. So he's a really good host.
So this is. I think I have a little bit to contribute. I've been doing like what Dan's doing right now. I've been doing that over the last couple years, and I've had many different occasions of meeting other sort of like energetic individuals, and some of them were positive experiences and some were negative. And sometimes it was just so much energy that I had to deal with internal integrating, and I'd have the body shakes. I never had a panic attack per se, but I could definitely tell that it's just the doing something very unusual for your normal routine. If you do something completely out of the blue, or even if you're meeting with someone else who is a real or energetic person, you can have that just by virtue of having that interaction where you haven't done that in a long time.
Right.
And also at the same time, like when you're doing something that the outside is aware of, and whether or not it's they're happy about it may also be shown through things like that. But it's not really necessarily a problem, because
You're in there too.
everyone has to learn how to deal with it at some point. Like the attacks, you have to learn how to deal with it. And if you just haven't yet,
Yeah.
then maybe this is a small introduction to what the possibilities are.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. It's, like Gary, I never actually told you, but after the guys on Isolating 5, they hit me. It was hard. I'll tell you, I'll introduce to the group at some point, like what actually happened in the week following that. The first time I went public, it was fairly intense. But yeah, it's survivable.
Or like if they physically assault you.
Sorry? Oh, did they physically assault me? No, it was, what I now know is electromagnetic frequencies. It's just started off, like the next day or the day after. Hello, Gary?
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you think it's safe to introduce this to the group, you think?
I mean, I think the group is aware of the TI phenomenon, but I don't know if it's. Dan's aware of it as well. I mean, you know about the TI stuff, right, Dan?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so
Well,
it's
well,
not it's
we're
not
about
like
to find
something
out,
new. It's
possibly.
not something new for him, but I think given the context of the situation, to not talk about these sorts of things at the very moment, I think it would be helpful to talk with Dan a little bit and have him
Yeah.
be able to express how he's feeling.
Okay, so I'll mention it. So it started off the next day or the day after the guys unisolating 5. It was feeling, started off with nausea, then vomiting. I was out cycling and then I couldn't complete the cycle. And I just had to sort of sit down for a while, started throwing up. I managed to complete what I was doing, got back home, started feeling worse. Then started, the shivering, shaking, literally rolling around on the ground with just unbelievable panic attacks. That went on for a couple of hours. More throwing up, more vomiting. And then after about 2 days, I went to the hospital. I wasn't well treated there at the hospital. Came back from the hospital. This after about 3 or 4 days, still hadn't eaten anything. Just diarrhea, vomiting, severe panic attacks, and then you have the spiritual visions in which I was being shown the cause of a lot of our misery. Because you see, what happens here is that the experiences that they're introducing you into, the idea is for you to survive them and for it to be as intense as you can handle, because this is like the reality of our situation. So I'd be shown, because these digital overlays that Org Teles and other people talk about, they actually did that, and I would see like the Satan problem that we have. It was a digital snake that was a metallic technological snake that was alive, and it.
Can't do this right now.
Sorry. And it went on from there. I got to see what happens to other people. In the future, people who've actually done the wrong thing. They could have done the right thing, but they chose to do the wrong thing. These are people close to me, and I saw them clearer than I see everybody now, and they were turning into, in the next octave, into parasitic wasps. It was quite nasty. Because they have to be parasites because they're not producing any light or love or compassion of their own. They're the psychopathic narcissists that we have in our lives now. But what they become in the future is actually a manifestation of their internal being. And so I saw that, and then there was some more panic attacks, and shivering and just feeling like hell for another couple of days. And then they started the remote touching. So they've got technology now, and I showed this on the group. They've introduced 3D technology to the public, 3D holograms, and they've also got other applications in which you can feel the 3-dimensional hologram. And so I could actually feel hands all over my body and stuff like that, which wasn't very nice. And what they like to do is they like to push you into a state where you have to drink some alcohol or whatever just to help you handle the situation. And then they hit you really hard, and they make the people around you think that it's actually alcohol, not the actual technology that they're using against you. And so they're doing the remote touching in a fairly unpleasant way. I don't really want to get into that. And after about 6 or 7 days of no eating, panic attacks, the visions, and so on, I took 2 sleeping tablets instead of 1, and that's when they really turned everything up. And there had to be an emergency ambulance called for me. This is about day 7, day 8. of no eating, nothing, because I just couldn't eat anything.
You said you're doing better now, though, right, Samir?
Oh yeah, much better.
Oh.
This happened a couple of months ago, and I was taken to the hospital. Emergency ambulance came. You know, they strapped me down to a gurney, took me to the hospital, and I couldn't make it. There's some interference on my side.
Interference.
There's feedback.
It's delayed.
Okay, so I'll just finish this because this of course there's gonna be interference now that I'm trying when I'm trying to talk about this. So so I'm trying to urinate into a bottle, right? Because I can't make it to the toilet, and the urine is actually when it hits the floor, insects come out of the urine and they start crawling everywhere, and it was like they came from another. Okay, I think they don't want us to speak about this.
Samir, just hold on a moment. Samir, hold on. The problem is sometimes is you keep telling the same stories and it starts having a reverberation effect. And it tries to
Sorry.
replicate itself through the telling of the story over and over. So it's not necessarily always a benefit to keep that energetic tone going.
Yeah,
Maybe we
sorry
could
about that.
no, maybe we could focus on something other than
Oh,
the
it's
TI
fine.
thing. Valerie, what kind of weird experiences have you had?
Just sometimes in dream space, I've had very vivid dreams. Something, particularly AI, I felt was trying to come into my dream space, sort of to wake myself up, and there's a kind of, I know there's something there, and then it's gone. That's been happening in the past probably 6. It just one dream I had. It was just very strange. And just yesterday, it's getting back to the fires in Australia. I was working out in the gym, and all of a sudden I just felt I was called to do some healing. I felt I was in an Aboriginal circle, mostly men, and an Aboriginal man came over to me and said I needed to go and work now. And it was very, it was very surreal because it was like I was living 2 lives at once. So I was doing my exercise and this was happening. And
Yes.
just lately, I just feeling that there's a lot of, I feel I've been pulled in different directions, or I feel I have a glimpse of doing something else. I don't know if anybody else has that feeling, but it's
Yeah.
just the energy has been very strange and very thin. I just feel like it's reality. It's just very fluid at the moment. Has anybody else have experience lately of you're
Yes.
another person or doing something else?
Yes. Definitely.
Gayatri, how have you been? You are you just tired, or have you been through the ringer as well?
No, I'm fine.
You're fine?
I'm just listening.
Okay.
Yeah. Trying to slowly acclimate into the group because I haven't been on here like forever, so I'm just
I
trying to
know.
learn everyone slowly.
Yeah, you've either had your own. I think you had a session with Daniel
I
once.
have a problem of avoiding human beings. I'm not joking. If I can just be in my room all day long without no human contact, I would gladly be that person.
I think it's good to face your fears. As cliche as that sounds, that is generally what most of us are doing for the most part, is avoiding the thing that we're worried about, that we kind of know we need to do.
The funny thing is, Gary, I'm actually a control freak. I need to control everything around me, and if I don't have control, I will go insane. That's
Yeah?
something that I'm currently working on. I can't even deal with people online. Imagine if I actually had a face-to-face conversation. I think I would drive myself crazy and the other person crazy. So this is my 2020 lesson, I guess. So I guess you could say that I've had my own struggles. Actually, being very psychic doesn't help either, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because actually it's my job, and extremely sensitive, and Imagine walking into a room and feeling like a grenade is thrown at you because being clairvoyant, clairsentient, and clairaudient at the same time. So it's something that no one has guided me through the years, which I thought was a big drawback because I always had to kind of shelter myself, being so sensitive. Now I'm just trying to kind of just acclimate myself to the logical world because I feel like that's what's really grounding me. Because I have too much of the spiritual inside.
Right.
It's like I have to just face reality and not really like what Samir was saying, like these things, right? It's mostly the mind manifest. It's not the one. It's out there, but if we feed into it more and more, it actually
It grows, right?
it grows. And
Right.
I know, I know, I know this man. He was extremely spiritual like me. He used to say that he was seeing like wormholes, um, in his room, in his house every time he was sleeping.
Wow.
Like different densities, and he was so scared that he had to sleep with his dog. But then, the more I got close to him, I realized it was his schizophrenic maniac thinking. Like, sometimes when you explore the dark too much, you get sucked into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start seeing different things. So you just have to always come back to reality and just reclaim your power and tell yourself, like, hey, it's not that it's not real, but I'm just not going to feed into it.
Well,
And actually, Lauda's prayers help. I don't know. I always tell her prayers whenever I'm feeling.
she has a prayer.
She has a
She has a
declaration.
prayer.
Yeah?
It's called the Declaration of Sovereignty, and it's
Whatever you want.
fantastic. She's a genius. I love her
Nice.
and her work.
You know,
Well, that one really saved me. Nothing else did.
you know what I've found very beneficial when I was going through that phase of is this real or is it not, or is there an actual creature there harassing me, or is it myself, is it my imagination? Like, I learned that you can just sit still for a second, and I don't mean do all the meditation thing necessarily, just stop whatever you're doing just for a second and see, like, what is making noise just by itself. Like, there's a fish tank over there. It's like making water noise, right? Like, I know that that's not a being. That's just a fish tank doing the fish tank. Like, you see a tree waving around outside. Like, if you just actually let whatever is actually going on around you actually go on, you will find that if there is something that you are exacerbating by your own creator ability and your own sort of empathic power that you have, you'll find that if you have been doing that, but if you just give it a second and be like, okay, what's actually going on without me being involved at all, then you'll find that it quiets down, and then you don't have that same like feedback loop effect that you have when all of your emotions are mushrooming things out. Like if you just watched a really scary movie and you're worried about a little noise that you heard around your closet door or something, you know? Because there is something that's actually going on if you like just take a second, step back. You'll hear, like, there are noises in your room. There may be some thoughts in your head. There is stuff going on, but it doesn't have the same import as your own mind will blow it out into, given any reason to, if you're sort of on that sensitive, like, hair trigger type thing, which we've all been there before. I've definitely been there. But challenge the thing. Like, if something is touching you or something, get really quiet and just see it. Like, let it live itself. Like, don't you make it alive. See if it actually has its own self-volition. If it doesn't, it will just die right in front of you.
Omar's here.
You just have to get angry and not fear it. A lot of people, like, they hold back. We just say fuck off, and it actually leaves you alone, whatever that is.
That too.
Unless you're not creating it by your own head. And
if you are creating it, then guess what? Like, it's your creation. Like, if it's sitting there eating you, it's because you want it to. Like you feel like getting eaten by the thing that you made. Like you have to claim power over your creations at some point.
You know, people who come in with abilities have to be extra careful because obviously, you know, they're more attuned with these frequencies, like I am, which I actually thought I was insane for a long time. My parents thought I was highly judgmental of people, and then they came to realize that, oh, okay, she actually has these gifts. She's actually using them.
Yeah, you,
So
you,
I
you
have
do
to be
feel
extra
insane.
careful and not, you know,
It feels
manifest,
insane at
because
first.
I'm a manifester by nature. I can actually manifest any demon, anything within seconds.
Yeah?
So I have to be careful.
Wait, can other people see these?
Sure. We're
Yeah?
on the same frequency
Mm.
as I am, for sure.
I hate to make this overly simplistic, but if it's something you don't want to deal with, stop thinking about it and don't worry about it. And if it's something that you like, then think about that and grow it and feel the emotions associated with both, and you have to make a choice which one you like. You have to take your rational mind and set things back in course and use that to overcome your emotional mind if it's something you don't like, and stop being afraid of it. It's not real unless you make it real at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you make it go away is you just stop thinking about it.
Give no energy.
Yeah.
And it starves.
It is, it's true. Like,
and it's not sitting there saying, when am I going to not feel afraid? It's just do something else.
Yeah.
You guys been feeling lately?
we all have the power. Each and every one of us literally creates our universe to an extent. Not 100%, not like you're consciously managing every little bit and piece that flows through it, but you are the feedback amplifier for your universe. So if you take any part of it and focus on it, you're going to start amplifying whatever little wobble or noise that thing's already making just by watching it. It's the observer effect.
Well, I like to try to manage 100%, but then again, I'm also retarded, so. But it seems to work out okay.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Retard?
Can I have
Are you a
question?
retard?
What do people think about the fires in Australia when you see it on television? What do you feel and think about it?
It's on fire. I don't watch television, but fires are very natural. They happen all the time. And I really don't think that they're being engineered. The place is dry as shit. I've been watching it over satellite maps the last 10 years, and it's really, really dry.
Has it changed in 10 years?
No,
It's
it's been really,
actually
really
a-
brown the entire time.
A hole, a big, hole in the ozone layer over Australia and New Zealand. I think that could be one of the reasons that's causing
I will
major
look.
fires. Because I lived in Australia for 3 years.
I will look in the weather mapping application that I'm subscribed to that meteorologists use, and I'll load the CO2 layer and the ozone layer later, and I'll screenshot it for us.
Sounds good.
I personally don't think they're normal, but that's just my opinion. Something is not right about them.
Can somebody fill me in on the you said Australia fires? I've not been paying any
Yes.
attention to the news either.
Most of the country's been on fire for the last
2
2
million
weeks.
animals have been.
Yeah.
I thought it was 500 million.
In the last week?
Couple
500
weeks.
billion animals.
Yeah, I think that's what we've been feeling, If, like I said, if you're starting to wake up, you're starting to reconnect with everything else, and it's been quite excruciating over the last week. I'd say even 2 weeks. I found it very difficult, to process what I've been going through, at the same time as feeling the pain that the whole biosphere is going through as well. That's something that I've noticed. It's very much there. And then, of course, you've got. I think that there's a code in what Donald Trump has been doing, because
in a very small scale with lots of people makes that change. So if there are millions of people worried about it, it makes the fires worse. Every year when this area catches on fire, I actually do a lot of energy work. Within 3 days, the fires are all out.
Aurora said she does the same
really
thing.
Bad shit happens.
Right.
A couple of years, I just let it go and see what happened. It got worse and worse. My parents' house was burned down. Right.
Yeah, Aurora said she does the same. She did the same thing, and like within a couple of days, like tons of rain came. I think it was a couple years ago.
Yeah, it basically lays you out on your ass for 1 week. You can't do anything. You just have to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, and we can do that. Like a group of us could do that same intention all together, and send water to Australia. You know.
There was a whole Facebook group devoted to something like that.
Really?
I've done experiments with clouds to see if I can make them dissolve, and I've dissolved clouds like 10, 20 miles wide within 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Sitting there with a friend, and he looked at it and said, "You didn't do that." I said, "Well, where's the wind, and why is the cloud I told you gone now?" And the one on the left still there, and the one on the right still there. Explain that. He's like, "I don't know. I gotta go home."
I gotta get away from you.
Get away. Go away, Omar. I don't like you anymore.
I'm going, fuck you guys. I'm going home.
Yeah,
I don't have a good Cartman voice.
That is definitely a. They did studies on like a bunch of people meditated in a certain city, and then like the crime rates for that weekend or whatever measurably dropped. So like the whole collective consciousness thing is, yeah, if you have a focus, that's what Spencer was talking about. Whether you buy his story or not, he was saying that it was just him and a bunch of other people focusing on a certain thing, and it made something move. It's not necessarily that you get to dictate exactly like how the tool is moving, but you definitely, it has some effect.
It's a lot like surging a light bulb. You can make a light bulb explode by focusing energy on it, and then it'll burn out or the glass will break. I have a friend that does that. But you don't get to dictate necessarily where the glass goes unless you're master. But the baseline is so low on how the seas are being steered that the minute a small group of powerful or focused people look to have an impact, it just troughs above where the water is flowing, and then all of a sudden you can actually have a good effect on something, or a bad effect too, depending on how you focus.
And depending on the level of the person who's actually trying to manifest something, because
that was a given.
We've been out of it for people have been out of it for so long that I think a lot of people have forgotten even that we have these perhaps latent abilities, but abilities nonetheless.
It depends who the audience is there. That's relativistic. There are millions, tens of millions of people that believe what we're saying is very real and have been practicing it for decades. There are hundreds of thousands of tens of thousands or some order of magnitude larger that don't know about that. But there are a lot of people that do. We're not all that special. People want to feel special, but we're all just here, kind of like trees. And we are special, but we have to make ourselves special. It's a choose your own adventure game.
Fabian?
It's a choose your own adventure game, like those books.
Yeah.
Turn to page 53 if you decide to turn left here.
Yeah.
More. You get to pick what's on the words too.
Yeah, it's a slightly more complicated choose your own adventure game. But it is, I mean, it is as simple as like if you make a choice, like the reality will reflect that choice in some capacity. It may not exactly reflect what you wanted to come out of it, but it will certainly allow you to make the choice. And then what comes out of it, that's just how good you are at maneuvering.
Oh, Fabian popped up. Hi, Fabian.
Fabian is here. Who are we missing? We're just missing Derek.
Rin.
Derek and Rin. I don't think I got a confirmation from Rin. Omar, meet Valerie
Hello, Omar.
And Daniel.
and Daniel.
Daniel is on loan from San Diego. Usually he'd have his own camera.
Yes.
Some low.
Are you feeling a little better, Daniel?
No.
No?
A little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna head out in a minute here.
Can you explain at all, like, your feeling state when the panic attack was approaching? Like, were there certain thoughts going through your head, or, like, what was going on?
Absolute terror.
Just out of the blue, though?
Absolute terror. Yeah. Just attacks. Like it doesn't feel like it's coming from me.
Mm.
It feels like it's coming from elsewhere, but I don't know. It might just be me, but
No reason, no, like, oh, it's because of X, Y, or Z, you just got hit with an attack?
yeah, no reason I could think.
1 second he was just sitting there. Then the next minute he was kind of like not saying anything. I was wondering what happened.
Mm.
It happens.
It does happen. I've had, when I was younger, like when I was in my 20s, I'd have a panic attack every other day. Like, when you're actually dealing with the thing, you're dealing with what it actually is, and depending on your level of sensitivity, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Like, plus you're with Omar, I'm sure Omar has some experience in these kinds of things as well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So,
Almost every day for the last 15 years.
what, still, like, currently?
Sometimes, usually trying to. So I was explaining it, and it's just really simple. I've had a lot of physical trauma, and there's a lot of nerve conduction issues with having to maladaptively physically adapt to regulating or monitoring what would be autonomic processes.
Mm-hmm.
Like what happens with food when you swallow it so you don't actually accidentally aspirate it.
Right.
Because the nerves are like pinched at the base of the spine on one side. In one part of the hip joint or coccyx or whatever you want to call it, the tailbone is like bent, and then there's like, I had a spinal tap in 5th grade that I didn't need to have. And I was doing a lot of deep work on my lower back last night in bed because I was having a hell of a time trying to sleep. I was actually freaking out. And I was feeling the spot, and I could feel it. And when you touch a spot, you know how you can remember what happened there, if it was a really traumatic thing or an injury.
Mm-hmm.
I was dragging my hand along the ridge on the inside of my spine, and I felt an indentation, and I got memories of the spinal tap. And my body was telling me it's trying to repair this right now. And like my legs were shooting out at random, like uncontrollably, and just really just awful fucking time. But if you sit with stuff like that and you work with it and you quiet your mind with the intention of just focusing on what your body needs you to do or just hold, like we so often forget that just like the power of touch to somebody else is powerful, the power of touch on yourself is very powerful. You can just lay your hand somewhere that's not having a good time and focus on it and tune in, and it will create an electromagnetic loop within yourself that will start to draw energy towards it, and that will help heal whatever is going on. It may take more than once, but in the case of like chronic,
Yeah, that was coming. Next week I'm gonna do the
Sure. believe when I see it.
It's my intent next week
What's your intent?
to do that thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'll do that thing. Copy Earl.
Earl. Cause Earl had to
And
go. What?
go to Fedbook. Snail Collective. It's already here. Okay, so. Oops. Okay, there's that. Yeah, it's pretty annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, dude.
Tiny chat. I think that's everybody. I forgot to verify with Derek if he was coming. And Rin. And everybody.
Slacker.
I can't take care of all these kids. Hey, Gayatri.
Hi.
All right,
Hi, guys.
we're back. Are you still awake?
Yes, I'm still awake. I have to fix my sleep. I've been really bad lately. Sleeping all day in the US time zone. Always happens.
You've got chaotic sleep patterns.
Yeah. I feel like I sleep to avoid my problems.
Well, don't do that. You gotta sleep and attack your
oversleep or
problems.
undersleep. Mostly oversleep.
That's a good way to find if you're depressed. If you don't want to get out of bed, that means you're depressed.
I don't think I'm depressed like I used to be. I don't know. It's just sometimes it just gets lonely because you don't have anyone that actually understands you.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you're coming to the States, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We appreciate you. You can come hang out with us,
Yep.
Okay. Sure.
right?
Yeah.
I think Valerie is back.
Yes, sorry about that.
Welcome back. Who else do we need? Samir, Fabian, Omar. Why is he texting?
Because he doesn't want to get on Facebook. That's why.
I can't. I guess
Hey guys,
Just do it on the.
No, he's
Messages.
back. He's back. Hey, Omar.
Daniel had to go, but he wanted to say bye to everybody, and thanks for having him on.
Okay.
Of course.
Did he go? Like he pieced out the door?
Yeah, he went. He ate some of this, and then he took off.
Nice.
I made a sweet potato, parsnip, celery, elk, jasmine rice, and spices, curry, yellow curry.
Looks tasty.
Yeah.
Did he get there last night or today?
Yeah, he got here last night at about 9 o'clock.
And he slept fine? There was no night problems?
He went to a motel.
Okay.
My mom brought an air mattress over for him because I only have one bed. But he was like, I think whatever happened started last night, and it just sort of eked its way out, and it just exploded, and
Snowballed.
like he felt a little better after he ate, but you could tell that. Well, you know how it is. Like sometimes these things take a few hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes they take a week. Sometimes they take a day. And then all of a sudden you'll be sitting there a month later going, I know what that was about now.
Right. Well, I mean, he's been talking about the world ending. I know he kind of jokes about it, but I think He's also, I think he's considering lots of
Is
things.
this still recorded?
That's still recording.
Okay. No, I'm pretty sure he's serious about that stuff when he posts it.
But that's what I'm saying is like if you're thinking about that kind of thing all the time, then you are like priming yourself to have a panic attack. You know, if the conditions are right.
Yeah.
I think
I was doing that in 2017 and almost moved to a 7,000-foot mountaintop in Colorado with no money.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So we do stupid shit to our heads. It's really, it's not
dangerous.
Yeah, it's not good, but
Did he?
Mostly the paranoia. That's what induces all these things.
Yes.
Did
he had some CBD of the CBD that my buddy grows on his farm in Virginia, and then 20 minutes later he like,
Oh, maybe.
there's no THC in it, but I don't know. Maybe he said he's had good CBD, but he said he uses the ILI form. So, but maybe because this is grown, it's really, really powerful. He only took one dropper, which is like 33 milligrams.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had never had CBD this potent, it's strong as fuck. Like it tests at 99% purity.
Okay. That's probably what it was.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
I think also
That
like
may have triggered like a feeling, you know.
maybe.
I think it's
Sorry,
just.
Andrew, what
I
were
think
you
it's just because he was doing something different. I think that's what it is.
Well, I was gonna say too. I think it's also like for us super sensitive ones when because we're sensitive, but we're also very powerful. And I think when we get together in person for the first time, sometimes it's like incredibly overwhelming just to sense so deeply another person's power that it's like, holy shit, it almost feels like, kind of feel like an attack maybe, but it just feels like you're not used to it, I guess. Something
we
like
had
that.
a really in-depth conversation last night about all manner of weird things and ohs and ahs and like, you know, quizzical looks on both ends, but it was probably a lot to process.
Yeah.
And then there's just my weirdness from being weird. I'm very calm, but I am weird.
We all are weird.
We're all weird.
Yeah.
Weird is the norm.
Mm.
Well, he's gonna learn something about himself. That's the good thing is like, so long as it doesn't turn you into a babbling mess that you can't come out of, you know, then it's gonna show you something. It's gonna, or else it's gonna give you a door to walk through or some sort of insight.
He's very, very, very well read. He's very book smart.
Mm.
He brought over this book for me to read that's like so dense it's honestly in my scary book corner. I'll look at it, but and I'll read through it.
What's it
But
called?
it's one of those books that I forgot. There's a better camp. So, see all the way over there. There's that desk in the corner, that old desk.
Mm-hmm.
If you look on the handle on the front of it,
Mm-hmm.
you see that big thing that looks like a gigantic board game that's rectangular under the globe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The book is the thing on the left, on top of that rectangle. It's a huge ass book.
Dang.
That's a stereo receiver from the 70s that it's sitting on top of. So it's a big freaking book. And it's all like religious theology, something or other. Like, I'm looking at it going, oh, this book's gonna fuck my head up, hopefully. So I put a book over there that I'm like, you know, when you get a new lighter and you're like, still a stoner and you want to see how hot it is and you really want to touch it, but you know you should, so you get your hand kind of close to it and you keep flirting with it. The book is in that corner. It's reserved for objects like that. It's hard to walk over there, so it's probably safe for a while.
Did you crack it? Did you look inside it all?
I looked at it and it's like those really thin pieces of paper that you could use as joint papers. So it's a very,
Like
it's
Bible
probably
paper.
like a 2,500 page book or something.
Parchment paper.
Bible paper.
Like the kind of paper that if you sneeze on it, it tears.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's how Bibles were made back in the day.
Yeah, I've never actually done anything like that, but I've heard people use Bible papers to roll a joint. And I think that's. I'm glad I don't smoke weed anymore. I'm not ever going to be that desperate ever again.
You probably would start getting.
I've smoked out of a lot of things, but never a Bible paper. Tin cans, screwdrivers.
Screwdriver?
Yeah, like
Screwdrivers.
ratchet wrench, how it's hollow on two ends. We've made all kinds of weird things. My friend had a machine shop. And we would just fuck off there for weekends, and we'd get like half a project done, and then build a weird bong or some kind of smoking device. Things that were fun in the past.
Someone made one out of an apple one time, I think.
Oh, that's easy. That's like the thing I would always do on vacation.
Is that the kindergarten method of making a bong?
You poke a pen through it, and you put a hole in the front, and that's your carburetor, and then the hole on the top is where you put the weed. And if you do it the right way, you don't need a bowl, and the weed just gets an ever so nice apple flavor on the top as it burns because it heats up some of the sugars, and it mixes. It's really nice.
That's probably how the hookahs got started.
Oh, I don't know. I used to know. I smoked hookah like 5 hours a day for 5 years when I lived in San Francisco. Oh no, it was obnoxious. It was bad. I'd
5
have
hours?
people over. Hey, come hang out with me and smoke hookah. I had like a little burner, a special burner on the stove. You put like the natural wood coals that were shaped like pieces of hacked up wood. Like they weren't the coals you get at the head shop. They were actually like I ordered them from Jordan, and they didn't put off any odor, and you had to heat them up until they were glowing hot, and they didn't have accelerant in them. It was fun.
I enjoyed smoking hookah. That was a fun period. Have you smoked hookah?
No, I don't think so.
We haven't
It's an
been
experience.
partaking in nicotine for 2020, right?
Right.
So you're 4 days in.
Mm-hmm.
Only 4 days?
Were you smoking factory cigarettes before?
No.
Yes.
Well, Dejarums.
That's factory.
They were factory, yeah. We were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're sourcing the tobacco, then they're factory.
Yeah, when we started, we were rolling our own with the loose leaf. And then we got lazy.
It's also way more expensive to buy those.
If I may ask, what loose leaf tobacco were you guys using?
I don't remember.
You tried a couple
I
different
know.
kinds, right?
Yeah, it was a couple different kinds. I know one of them was a big blue canister, light blue. I don't remember the name.
Well, if you guys want, and if you decide that you want to fall off the wagon, I watched this, and it's grown in Virginia.
Thanks, Omar.
And it's organic, and it comes as a big plastic bag of whole leaves, and I have to take the stem off and everything. It's a pain in the ass, but it is. Daniel smelled it last night. He said, "Holy shit, that smells good."
I'm sure it does.
So,
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks, Omar.
The difference is that's medicine.
It
But the
is.
stuff that you buy
Yeah.
from the tins or from the store, it's super adulterated.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know it is medicine. I know it has it brings me back to like grounded center really quickly.
So my point was, Andrea, you're probably detoxing all the weird chemicals from factory stuff right now.
Oh yeah.
Because when I quit smoking factory cigarettes, there was a period of about 2 weeks where I felt like I could peel myself off the walls. Highs and lows and everything in between, and like grumpy and moody and sleepy and angry and snappy and just everything. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Beans? Omar? I've got something to add to that. Remember what you were saying before about speaking with the watchers regarding the technological problems that you were having?
I love how you always cycle back to your focus. You're very dedicated. What are you referencing? I forget.
Well, what I'm referencing. Remember, you had
That's not a
problems with your
snipe. That's not a snipe, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
Observation.
Remember what you were saying before about how you spoke to that person, literally in your mind, about the issues you're having with your computer to try to resolve something, and then once that was resolved, then
Oh, yes. It could be correlation, not equaling causation, but
yeah,
it
it could
could
be.
have been. There's not really an ad absolutum certainty kind of level with stuff like that. It makes for an interesting story, and that makes our egos feel good when we tell them. I don't know for certain that actually was the case, but it seemed like it to me, and that's my perception. But it doesn't mean that it's valid, and it's factual, and it's repeatable.
Okay, I'll go with what you're saying there. So, as crazy as it might make me sound, so I had one of those technological images placed into my head, and there was this guy sitting by a desk, and he said to me,
His nose.
"We have put chemicals in the cigarettes and the alcohol, you know." And I said to him, I said, "Okay, so why are you telling me this? Because given my treatment, that didn't indicate that they liked me at all." And he just said, "I've been ordered to tell you," you know. So
You're listening. That makes me so happy.
yeah.
Okay, so keep going.
Who was this,
I'm
Samir?
paying attention.
Who said this?
No, who said it? I don't know. It's what usually happens. With me, it was a guy. He just looked like a government functionary behind a desk, and I saw him in the same way that I'm looking at the phone now, but the image was inside my head, and I probably should have listened a bit more because I'm still drinking and smoking cigarettes, which isn't the best, but I am very healthy, in other regards. It's just the stress levels are through the roof. So I just thought I would.
You drink alcohol?
Add. Sorry, what?
You drink alcohol?
Yeah, occasionally, yeah.
May I add something here real quick about that? When
It's bad.
What? No, not that. When I was drinking, I would have anxiety a lot, and then when I quit drinking, about a month afterwards, I realized that most of the anxiety, in reflection, was very regimented in a time pattern, and it was focused around the amount of time that alcohol was out of my system. And what I realized was that once a certain amount of time passes, the organs are like, look right, look left. He stopped. Party, let's heal, fuck yeah! Ah! And then, like, you get really, really moody and really, really grumpy, and you want to kill everything. And it's because your body has toxins from the alcohol, which is the excrement of yeast mating, stored up, and they're like, they've got to go. They don't belong in there, so they have to get out, and it makes you really anxious because your body has to pull minerals and it has to pull nutrients from your fat. And if you have a relatively regular lifestyle, you eat fast food or drink energy drinks or do any of those types of things, you have toxins stored up from the things you're putting in that your body has sequestered away to protect your vital organs, and they're all going to start coming out because you're releasing those minerals and those metals, and the body is mobilizing to try to get rid of everything at once, but it only does as much as it can do. But when it's doing that, it really, really makes you tired and really kind of, I believe the term is rickroll.
Well, yeah, alcohol is a neurodisinhibitor and a central nervous system suppressant. So when you stop taking it, all the parts of your body that were used to suppress your central nervous system then go into overdrive and overcompensate for the the lack of depressants.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to find a baseline level of biostatic functioning. They're trying to come back online, and that process is rough. It's just like quitting a prescription drug or a street drug or anything. People don't really think about it the same way because it's so prevalent in our society, but it's a hell of a drug.
Mm.
Yeah.
Indeed. So how have you been feeling, Omar, over the last 2 weeks?
Fantastic. I don't like the alternative of choosing not to feel good, so even when I'm having a shitty time, I'm still feeling good.
Oh yeah.
Every night when I go to sleep, I set the intention that I'll wake up to see the sun tomorrow and do cool shit, and I really... Sometimes when you're... Even if you're not in a dark place, it's really important to be focused and have goals and set up in your head what you want, or write it out on paper so you can see it. So it keeps you going. Like lately, I've been starting a lot of new projects, and I have a few apps that let me take really detailed notes and assign them to dates and stuff like that. So they'll show up on the calendar, and you can reference them and sort them into different categories and things, and search for them or what have not. But any way you can get your thoughts in an organized fashion, like we're not that different than a dirty sink. If you put a lot of shit in your sink and you don't wash it, and you're looking for your favorite spoon, like hell you're gonna find that spoon. Clean the dishes, and then you'll know where the spoon is. It's not that hard.
That's good.
Yeah.
Same thing with your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what's happening.
Or your health. I mean, that's just human. That's life. So many people are just convinced they're not worth it, and so they don't try.
Or
Yeah.
you get a special affinity to the loop that you've been doing, whether the loop is good or bad or mediocre. And you
Yeah,
just
a lot
do
of
the
times
same thing
people
because
feel
you've
they
been
deserve
doing it.
them.
Yeah.
But even if you look at it from a sort of nihilistic point of view, like, why do you need to be special on the negative side? Like, why couldn't you just as well deserve to have all kinds of riches and, you know, not be a targeted individual and yada yada yada? Like, why would it? If it's divvying out, you know, it's bullshit in a non-affected manner, then why couldn't it be the other?
Then you wouldn't be a nihilist. But yeah, absolutely. That's what's so weird to me personally, Gary, about subcultures, is people have developed all kinds of schools of thought and schools of philosophy over the last few thousand years, and people are so desperate to know who they are that they try on all these different schools of thought as like packages that they can install, and then they start learning about that thing, and then they see if it fits, and they drive themselves crazy when really the hardest thing is to just go inwards and to really just learn what you are without any externality or any distraction, anything to suggest how to think or how to feel or what to think or how to think.
Yep.
And once you start doing that, it really just there's no mountain in front of you anymore that you can't see directly through because you know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that, there's no more excuses either.
Nope.
Because there's
You know what the wizard looks like. You
nobody
peel
else
the
to
curtain
blame.
back. You are the wizard. This whole time, it's been you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's hard to take.
It is. and nobody can have you realize it except for yourself. There's no magic words. There's nothing one can say, Samir, that would make it clear and tell you how the process evolved for yourself personally.
It's also kind of like not necessarily something even you being yourself can just choose like, hey, I just want to really see what's going on here. Even that's not always possible. Sometimes it's just not correct timing or something. Like even if you
Yeah.
very sincerely say like, really show me what's going on,
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. It has to happen in the way that your brain is a lot. Whatever you want to call it is a lot smarter than your will and your intention.
Mm-hmm.
It knows that part of you that guides everything that's unconscious knows exactly what you can handle, and I think that's what a lot of people call God, actually, because there's that expression, God only shows you as much as you can bite off and chew. But it's really, regardless of bringing God into it, that force that guides you in a divine sense, or in a sense where it knows what you need, whatever the fuck it is, and you're not gonna get more than you can handle.
Right.
I'm not too sure if that's true. There's plenty of people who are killing themselves. They're obviously given more than they could handle.
Well, that's what they needed at that time.
Yes.
Were they on pharmaceutical drugs? Did they have, like, there's a lot of factors.
A lot of factors.
I'm talking about the baseline being somebody that doesn't partake in substances and eats healthy food and gets enough sleep. The Ayurvedic Indian medicine system was very, very specific that you need to poop regularly, you need to sleep regularly, or a fair amount every day. You need to eat healthy food, and you need to avoid doing stupid shit. Those are the 4 pillars. There's one more of living a good life.
Avoid
so
doing
that's the
stupid
baseline
shit.
assumption that if you're doing those things, you're probably not going to jump off a bridge.
Yeah, but a lot of the basic knowledge required to help people understand who they are and where they're going in life has been removed and replaced with tropes. And so it's very difficult to make intelligent decisions, especially like from within the United States. Almost everything you've been told is a lie. And very often people are forced in certain circumstances onto the pharmaceuticals at an age where they're too young to actually understand the consequences.
Oh, absolutely. But it's difficult to understand. Sorry, it sounds like I'm going back to my point. I am. It's difficult to understand when you're looking externally. But a lot of people do get the short end of the stick by being put on medicines in school or what have you. But I was put on Ritalin in high school in 11th grade, and I took it for 2 years. I graduated. I went to college. I looked at it. I said, fuck this. I'll throw it in the trash can.
Mm-hmm.
My parents aren't here anymore. They can't force me to take it. I'm done. And then I failed my Chinese calligraphy class because I kept missing the class because I was detoxing from the Ritalin. And I was oversleeping.
You survived. You're okay.
It was a fun class, though, while I was still allowed in the door. I went in one day, and the lady says, Southpaw, you failed class. Go see office. And she did kind of have a Yoda voice. I'm not being practical.
It's an individual labyrinth for each person. And there's choices at each turn in the road, at every corner. It's not the same for everybody, but I think it's probably equally difficult for everyone at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And it's weird. It's a constant evolution. You're never done.
Never.
You probably are temporarily done when you die, but that's theoretical. We can't really be sure.
Okay, you get 5 minutes of rest in the void, and then I'm kicking your ass back out.
Probably.
Okay?
It's like when you're in a boxing match and the guy gives you the water thing, and you're like, okay, come on.
Go, go, go.
You're like, no, let me sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I think I came in this time kicking and screaming. Like, I had a memory given back where I was like pushed in, and I was like, no, I don't want to go.
That's funny you say that, because I remember being born and like chilling in the ceiling in the corner of the room, watching my mom like in the bed, and yeah, it was like I decided to go. I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna kill this lady very moment if I don't jump in there. Then I was like, fine, and the next thing I remember, it was like being sucked out with a vacuum cleaner, and
God.
like being purple and put on oxygen and just fucking being like so quiet.
Yeah.
And then
Wow.
a day or two later, like I think I remember seeing my mother, but
Wow.
fucking weird. 46-hour labor.
Wow.
Yeah, my sister.
That's so
came out
mean,
on
Omar.
46 hours.
C-
That's almost 2
My
full
sis-
days.
My sister came out on a C-section.
You didn't?
But you know, it's really interesting because lately she's been having all those problems with drugs and stuff, and you know, I told you guys I think that she trashed my parents' house and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. She'd gotten evicted and she was allowed to stay there while they were on vacation, and then they had invited her to live with them as long as she was trying to be clean and stuff. And within 10 minutes or so, she let her boyfriend into my parents' house, who was not allowed to be in the house or on the property. And then the entire time they were there, my parents came back, and the house was filled with trash and food everywhere. Every room except my dad's office and my parents' bed.
Wow.
And they found hundreds of dollars missing, lots of items missing. And it makes me wonder, with natural selection and like she's abused pretty much every drug known to man.
Yeah.
Yeah, where's that echo coming from?
See if you
Anyway,
can
so
hear
she's
that.
abused just about every drug known to man. And it makes me wonder if, because she wasn't born naturally, like maybe it affected her biochemistry in some way. Like there's a profound sense of black in a baseline. Like I'm just reaching for limbs because it's interesting, but maybe it affects your disposition as the person, like how your birth is. I know people write about that, but maybe it's actually valid. I don't know.
Yeah, apparently, from what I was reading, the best thing is for it to be a water birth in a dark room, so the woman's in the bathtub. So water birth, usually doctors shouldn't be present because they make things worse. And the baby's head and heart should be near the mother's chest, so the baby's heart regulates itself in accordance with the mother's heart. And the mother and baby can actually be together for quite some period of time. And the love shown to the baby during that period of time actually has a correlation with the neural cell development of the baby. So basically, love shown towards the baby improves intelligence later on in life.
Yeah, it's like there's obviously the bond when you're in the womb, but then when you come out, if those things don't happen, then it causes a lot of issues.
No, I think the medical process is evil. You know, holding the baby upside down and hitting it on the back says, "Welcome to Earth. You're not gonna like it here," you know. I don't think any of that is necessary. But it's very important to do that to people. It's always about separating the mother from the baby, because males protect the presence of humanity, women protect the future of humanity. That's how it works. And right now, humanity's gone a little deranged with a little too strong male energy, and in their attempt to protect the present, they're destroying the future. This is what I see, and as well, convincing women to give up on motherhood so they can go out to the workplace, and then the bankers get taxes for both men and women now, and as a bonus, they get the child and brainwash them at an earlier age. So it works very well, and then of course you've got the benefits of what they like to call labor flexibility. So you've got men and women now, in many cases, competing for the same job, which allows them to push down the wages. So it's win, 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 no matter how you look at it, going their route. What I would say is kick out the communists and bankers, all right? Increase the wages so that men can work, women can do what they love, which is being with the children, and mothers are the best teachers for their children at any rate. And get rid of the baby bottles as much as possible so the mother can breastfeed, because a lot of antibodies required for baby growth and future development actually comes from the DNA package. It's a crude way of putting it, which is actually the female. She's been here for a very long time, maybe 30 years at that point, so all the antibodies required for the child's health is in the lactate in the mother's milk. But they're trying to remove the mother from the situation in a technological solution, like 600 vaccines by the time the person's 18. They're not walking into walls by the end of that and proving outside their mouth. It would be a miracle. But that's the basic idea.
You said it all. What's that? Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump.
There's not a lot I could add to that besides yes.
Thank you.
The monkey hut is very well designed, and the rest of that stuff you said afterwards is important.
Yeah. But it's extremely painful as well, knowing all of this. Knowing it all and not being able to do anything about it.
You have to learn to accept that as well.
Yeah.
In fact, it's kind of weird. That's the only thing I do like about Alcoholics Anonymous. Is that part of their motto?
The Serenity Prayer.
Can go to hell, but their motto is accept the things you cannot change. Mm-hmm. It's not that you accept the things you cannot change; it's that you accept that you can't change things that aren't related to you.
Yeah. What often happens if you've had a fairly harsh childhood is that you have an overblown sense of responsibility as an adult, which I've noticed for myself. I saw the problems in the world, in certain regards, but I had a sense of responsibility for what's going on today. I can see that now.
Yeah, me too. I understand that.
It's good to have awareness of what's going on, but if it paralyzes you and you find that all you're doing all day is thinking about the world's problems, then you're not even living your own personal life, and then you're of no use to yourself or the collective. So there has to be some sort of balance. It can't just be like, I've seen both ends of it. I've seen people that don't give a shit and they just run over everyone and their feelings and they don't care at all. And then I've seen the other side where you want to save the world and you really feel like you need to, but then you stress yourself out so much thinking about it that you don't even live your life and brush your teeth and, the very simple self-care
it's
items.
Like reposting things on Facebook about what's happening in the world. You get really caught up with that and sharing.
Yeah.
I know this information. Do you know this? It's kind of like showing just a whole mess of things and what's behind it. And people get very drawn into that, and you have to really pull yourself back because it just comes. It eats you up inside.
Yes.
It's like this. Do you know this? No, they don't know this. Quick, post that thing again.
Yes. That's exactly valid.
Yeah, I've seen, especially, it's like everybody wants to sort out the world and give their view, and it becomes really, yeah, you just step back and get out of it, take a break from it. Yeah.
Because the thing is there are actual things that we can do. Like, you can do things. Like, we've been talking about wanting to do something about homeless in Portland at some point when we have our own place and we have our own sort of base to operate from. And I already know what I want to do. Like, I talked with Andrea about it. We're going to build a website and have people can go on there and view the homeless people in their own city and see things about them and see, like,
Their needs.
their likes, their dislikes, just to where you actually know the person rather than them just being the bum that's annoying on the corner. Like, it gives you more of a personal connection. Like, that's something I would like to do, but
Yeah,
it's not
evolve
hard.
the dialogue rather than just re-traumatizing everybody all day through the internet, which is a reality-generating device.
Yes.
It's like a rudder on a boat. How are you going to use it? Is it a tool, or are you just going to make everybody really upset?
Right.
Yeah. And I think all the dark, the shadow, the nasty, the ugly, the gross stuff had to be at least witnessed by a few consciousnesses. But it wasn't meant for us to stay stuck in that knowledge. It's meant for us to see it, witness it, so that it never has to happen again, hopefully, and we can move on, do something else.
And focus on the things you can actually do. Like, seriously, we're running out of time, so we're going to say goodbyes, but there are things you can do and there are things you can't do. Like, focus on the things you can actually do.
Gary, how much time is left?
Less than a minute.
Less than a minute.
Okay,
We're going to do the other.
This is a very short, very poignant. It's about a minute long.
Perfect.
But you should not be attached to those things, that's all. It's just using them as tools. Also, the ego and the senses. The ego is the cement that holds the five elements in the whole creation together. Without ego, cosmic ego, there would be no creation at all. All of these things are tools for the soul to come into this world and experience the things of the world and find fulfillment.
Find fulfillment. That was good.
Next week, different server.
Yes, please, for goodness sake.
Okay. What are we on? Number 9?
You ask me every time and I don't know.
Why don't you ever know? Can't keep it all.
It's not my job.
Can't keep all this. I think it's number 9. I do believe. Number. Hope Dan's okay.